Hello, AP Psych students, and welcome to section 2 of chapter 6 on sensation and perception. We're going to look at vision today. The sense, not the Marvel character. This is probably the most frequent studied sense. If we go back to the first section of video that we watched in terms of absolute threshold, seeing a candle flame at 30 miles away on a clear, dark night, that's pretty powerful. You could argue it is probably our most powerful and most useful sense. I think most people, if you polled them, if you had to lose one sense, most people would not want to lose vision. So what we see, this is a little sciencey today. Light waves. This is the electromagnetic spectrum, and we see this tiny little amount here, which is our Roy G. Bib, and then we don't see X-rays or ultraviolet or infrared or microwaves. Thankfully, radio waves because they're everywhere. The hue is the color we see. The wavelength of light determines that. The brightness is the intensity of that wave. So the amplitude of the wave determines how bright it is. The saturation is the complexity. It's basically how wide or narrow the range of the wavelength is. Our eyes, we're going to go over to kind of the structure of the eye, which you probably studied in anatomy or basically biology. Rods transduce light waves into light and dark impulses. They're at the center of our fovea, of our retina, which is there, and it carries it to the optic nerve. They basically see dark and light, so black and white pretty much, and they're concentrated in the middle. You have 125 million of them. Excuse me. They're located on the edges. My bad. It's late. Located on the edge of the eye. So that's why your peripheral vision is actually in black and white. You're like, no, it's not. But we have some optical illusions later that will prove it. You're not aware that it's black and white because as soon as you look at it and move your eyes towards what you saw, it turns to color. Because the cones see color. Cones and color start with C. They transmute light waves into light, dark, and color impulses. You only have 7 to 8 million of them, and it's located in the center of the fovea, which is pretty cool that you can see colors and millions of colors. However, when light gets dark, and that's why we don't really see color as well at night, because you just don't have as many receptor cells. The optic nerve is the nerve that carries the visual messages to the brain. And then we have the optic chiasm, which is the area of the brain where half the optic fibers from each eye cross the opposite side of the brain. So the right eye goes to the left brain, and the left eye goes to the right brain, and all that fun stuff. So the parts of the eye, you have the cornea, which is the protective coating on the surface of the eye that the light passes through. The iris is the colored part of our eye that we like, the blue or the green or the brown or hazel or whatever you have. The pupil is the opening of the iris, and then the lens is the transparent portion of the eye that adjusts the focus light on a retina. It's amazing how quickly our eyes can focus and kind of look all around. The ciliary muscle is the muscle that controls the shape of the lens, so you can look far, you can look close. And then the retina is the area at the back of the eye in which the images are formed, and it has our rods and our cones. So our eyes can adapt to darkness. Eyes adjusting to a dark situation. Rods work better in low light, but it takes 20 minutes to fully adapt to a super dark room or if it's really dark outside. Light adaptation is when our eyes have to adjust to like mom flipping on the lights because you slept in and it's Monday and we have to go back to school. Oh my. It takes about a minute to adjust, but it kind of hurts. So we have a little bit of sensory overload and some functionality going on there. Rods and cones are connected by synapses and the bipolar neurons called the ganglion cells. That's very technical, sciencey stuff. They converge to form the optic nerve. The optic disc is a blind spot where the nerve leaves the eye. Maybe if you roll up a piece of paper and put it up to an eye and they did this thing with your hand, and you can see the circle in your hand, that's showing you that optic disc. Fun stuff. I'm not sure. I remember that as a kid. So why our visual system is not like a camera. Even though on the last slide I have a picture of how, hey, look, an apple comes in and then it flips because of the iris and the cornea and all the pupil and all that, and it flips and then the retina. It's not like that. The ganglion cells and the neurons in the thalamus respond to simple features in the environment. You're pre-wired to see things. These are called feature detector cells. They're sensitive to specific features in the environment to pick up shapes, pick up patterns. David Hubel and Torsten Wiesel, won the Nobel Prize for this work in the area. One of 5 psychologists to win the Nobel Prize for psychology. Yeah, good job. You can pick up certain things like bullseyes, spirals, certain shapes, patterns, but we really are pre-programmed to see faces. We see faces everywhere. We just pick them up. It's just natural to see a face. In fact, there's this, you can follow face pics on Twitter where they find normal everyday objects that look like a face. The face module may be linked to interest as well. This explains a lot of our optical illusions and things like that. So how we see colors, there's a couple theories. You have the trichromatic theory that basically, or it's also known as the Young-Helmholtz theory. There's 3 types of cones. We see red, green, and blue, kind of like an old-fashioned TV set that had red, green, and blue, and they can produce all the different colors through these combinations. True color blindness is rare, but being color deficient is more common, where you can't distinguish between greens and reds. That's the most common type of color blindness. 8% of white men have it. I'm not sure what it is for people of color. Less than 1% of women. So these are some standard colorblind tests, and you can pause this and take a look at them. This is showing on the left what people with regular vision see, and this is what a colorblind person would see. So they can see this one just normal. The 29 here they can't see. The 45 they can't see. 56 are okay, but then, some of these other ones here, they're having a hard time. This was a game they did a couple years ago in the NFL. They did a color rush. So they did the Bills and the Jets play, and they wore red and green. It was really cool, except for colorblind people. This is what they saw. And they couldn't tell who was who. So the other one is the opponent processing theory. The neurons respond to short wavelengths, but are inhibited from firing by long wavelengths and vice versa. So to explain that into layman terms is they're basically blocked. So when you remove the color, then the other side gets to fire. So when you see black, it stops the white from seeing. And when you release it, then the white gets to see. Other cells stop firing when the color is removed. And so this is why we will see negative after images. And so if you stare at this, I'm going to just pause. I'm going to stare at the circle here. Stare at the circle. Let's just do 10 seconds. Just keep staring. You're doing good. You're doing well, I should say. Excuse me. And then you keep looking, and then when you look to the next slide, you're going to see the after image. You're going to see the American flag in red, white, and blue. As you can see, it was yellow, black, and green. And so that's the after image going on. This is where we get some controversy. I don't even want to get into this. Everyone knows it's green and white. Excuse me, gold and white. That's gold and white. You're going to argue with me, but that's gold and white. There's more. They've come up with so many of these, and I still can't explain this. It's so strange. What color are the strawberries? Good luck with that one. This one will blow your mind. Those hearts are all the same color. They're all the same color. The hearts are the same color. I know you don't believe me. These 2 sides of the cube, they're the same color. We're going to explain this a little more. I'm going to do a whole separate video on optical illusions. So form perception. We have Gestalt theory, Gestalt psychology, that basically we can fill in the gaps. This was big in the 1930s, 20s, and 30s in Germany. That's pre-fascism, pre-Nazism. Basically, the whole is more than the sum of the parts. And so if you look at it here, you probably see this triangle here, not 3 Pac-Man ready to duel. You probably see like a snake wrapped around a pole here instead of like Elvis haircuts or apostrophes. These ones are a little easier. You see like a mace and a snake and all that fun stuff going in and out of the water. So we organize visual fields into figure and ground. And so we do these things. Unique items and moving objects stand out. They catch our eye. It's very normal to do. And there's other Gestalt principles to follow. Figure ground. So if we look at it, just the vase here, we just see a vase. But when you reverse it, and suddenly the figure and the ground are reversed, then you can see the 2 faces, the shadows on the wall. Oops, I went a little fast. I'm sorry. This is another example of it, that the cow, the coloring on the cow here, it looks like 2 people getting ready to talk. This kind of looks like a Neanderthal, to be honest. I don't know, maybe you're a good person, you see good. Maybe you're evil, and that's what you saw first. But your brain can switch back and forth on both of these. Our brain also likes to lump things together. We group things naturally. This is called proximity. So our brain will naturally kind of put these in columns on this one, and then the way these are lined out, we will organize those 3 into rows. Closure, that is not a complete human face, but our brain with our feature detector cells can pick that up and we can make sense of that. We understand that that's going on. That's one of the most common Gestalt principles going on. We also group things similarity based on similarity. So we apples and pears. We're not comparing apples to oranges here. We're comparing apples to pears. Continuity. We know that baby's not in jail, by the way. It's in a crib, but we know that the baby's face is still there. So depth and distance perception also does a lot. So we have two eyes. We have binocular cues, which that convergence helps us with depth perception. So if you take and scoot back a little bit and take your hands and go like this and put the Eiffel Tower, extend your arms out, put your Eiffel Tower in the little, Rockefeller records right here. So your diamonds in the sky. Put it there and then close your eye, one eye back and forth. Whichever one that the Eiffel Tower does not shift is your dominant eye. The one that does shift is your weak eye. So this is retinal disparity, so you can test your eye dominance. So we also have monocular cues, clues of depth to be seen with only one eye, like size and other things like that. So some other depth cues, texture gradient. If you had one eye, maybe she got poked out and you're like Odin or something, you can tell things are closer to you because there's more texture, there's more detail. As they go further away, you don't see as many details. Linear perspective, we know that the lines go away from us, they converge into a single spot. This is a perspective kind of thing that's fun to do with art. Superposition, we know that these trees are not giant monumental trees. They're closer to us, and we can still tell size and depth with one eye, not just two eyes. Shadowing, you can take all these little pieces right here and then make this wonderful 3D image, even though this is all a two-dimensional image. Aerial perspective, we know that from up above, things look smaller. Elevation gives us depth cues as well. Once again, using one eye. Also, what is closer, which is further away, that can tell us which is just one eye. We don't need our binocular cues to understand these things. So visual constancies is when seeing to believing. When we perceive objects as stable and unchanging, even when sensory patterns are constantly changing. That's a fancy way to say optical illusions. This is perceptual constancy. We have shape constancy, location constancy, size constancy, brightness constancy. Kind of these things. What's going on around affects how we see the shape, the location, the size. I asked what color are the clouds today? Trick question. They're always white. Clouds are always white. If you don't believe me, go up above sometime on an airplane. Color constancy, and then visual illusions when seeing is misleading. And so I'm gonna stop here for the notes. We're gonna have a separate video for the people at home to look at our optical illusions. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you enjoyed this.